my YouTube fam. Got another video for you guys today. I'm in a video making mood. Sometimes you get in those moods where you're just like, you know what? I'm gonna do some videos, and that's the mood I'm in. So here we go. So if you guys just watched my last video I uploaded, I was talking about my my Koenig mini goblin that I just procured and I am excited about. On the same day, I snagged one of these babies, and it might be crazy for some people to hear this, but I have, even though I've got tons of knives, probably have 100 and something knives, different brands, different models, sizes, makes, whatever, I have never handled a Benchmade 940. And I was telling Steve that, and Mr. Blade Banker, Mr. Ben, he's my buddy. I was telling everybody that, and they were like, what? You've never handled a freaking 940? That's like a staple of the knife community. That's a knife that everyone has put hands on. Everybody except Bama Knife Guy, apparently. So I have not handled one until recently. This is, of course, the Benchmade 940 Osborne. And I will break into this box for you guys. I got this on the same day as my Koenig mini goblin from the same gentleman, TikTok Croc. Thank you, sir. And I am extremely excited about this acquisition. I love this knife. I've never handled one. They are smaller than I thought they were. We were just talking about the size of small knives. We were just talking about that with the mini goblin. This one fits that criteria as well. It is not a large knife, and same kind of attributes, I guess, apply to this one as with the mini goblin. I love it, even though it's a smaller knife. Now, don't get me wrong. Steve made a good point when we were talking about it yesterday. He said it's kind of like a little big knife, and what I usually categorize as a little big knife, and so do Jared and Kara Neve, is a little fat knife. You know, like the Techno one here. It's a little big knife. It's very thick blade stock. It's a short little tiny knife, but it's a fat, little big knife. It's a little big knife, and the name is perfect for what it actually is, because it's small, but it feels big and it's chunky, and that's what I usually call a little big knife. But this one kind of meets that criteria as well, but in the opposite form, meaning it is longer but thinner. So these are shorter but thicker, longer but thinner. And it is a very long blade. I haven't measured it, but I think Steve said it was like 3.5-inch blade or something like that. And it's S30V. It's the green aluminum handles. It's got the purple backspacer, and of course the ever so fidgety axis lock. And I played with this thing forever when I first got it. It's such a great lock design. It's so easy to deploy. And the only other axis lock that I've owned is the bug out. And this one, of course, is still new. It's very tight. I haven't played with it enough to get it loosened up yet, but man, I love this knife. And everyone that, when I told them I had gotten one, I won it in a raffle from Mr. TikTok Croc. And when I told everybody that I was getting it, they were like, dude, you're going to love it. It's such a fidgety knife. It's so fun. It's so ergonomic and slicey. And I would have to agree with everything everyone said. I'm really, really enjoying it. I carried it the first day I got it, and the second day, and the third day. So, or no, yeah, 2 days. Yeah, 2 days. No, I think it's been 3 days now. But I've carried it every day so far on my left side as kind of my backup knife, but it seems to be the primary carry, even though it's on the left side because it's so fidgety. And I have been loving it. Anyone who has no experience with the 940, which is probably one of you watching this, because everyone has experience with the 940 except me. But if you do not, I highly suggest it, man. This is a great, great knife. Absolutely a fidgety, fun, slicey knife. The ergos are good. It's super thin. It fits your hand good. You feel really locked in. There's no crazy hot spots. The clip where it turns up right there kind of bothers me a little bit, because where it ends up is right dead center of my middle finger. So that's a little bit of an issue, but they make some deep carry clips like what you see on the bug out that will kind of fix that problem a little bit and change the ergonomics of it a little bit. But it's not enough of a bother to make me not like it. And I can actually back up a little bit and my finger will land in that groove, which I think is how it's designed to be used. But the way I end up holding the knife, it does end up in the middle kind of right in the middle of my finger there. But it's not enough of a problem for me to not like the knife. It is, like any other Benchmade with an axis lock. It's a ambidextrous knife. It's got double thumb studs. It is easily deployed. I don't know if this is a problem for most people. It's not for me, but it's easily shaken open if you're just holding it. But that's due to the fact that the axis lock is what it is. I mean, you don't have like a standard detent like you would with a frame lock or anything like that. You have the axis lock, which holds the tension on the tang there to keep the knife closed, and you can just kind of give it a little shake and it opens up. But it's not anything. It does take a little bit of force, and it has to be directly that direction force. Like if it's in your pocket and you're jumping around, there's no way that knife's coming open. It has to be force in that direction, like to open the knife. So it's not anything that's a bother for me. And even knives with light detents that are frame locks, liner locks, things like that, I've never known anyone really that said that was a major problem. Of course, that's something that people love to say, like about the Nirvanas and things like that, and the Payson, whatever it's called. People love to say, oh, it'll come open in your pocket. It may be if you're a gymnast and you're doing somersaults off of a balance beam, but I've never known anyone to be jumping around such that their knives are open in their pockets. And if that's happening to you, you need not carry a knife while breakdancing. You should calm down and get your life together, because that's a little extreme. Calm down. Don't be carrying a folder while you're jumping off of buildings and skydiving and bungee jumping. Because I've never known in everyday use for me to be moving in such an extreme fashion that my knife opens in my pocket. That seems a little far-fetched to me. There's a lot of YouTube guys out there that love to talk about the things in EDC and the knife world that actually matter, and they use some more choice words like Steve does. Does it blanking matter? I'm trying to get a little better at not using language on my channel now that my kids are watching it. But he has a very good point when he's trying to explain certain things. There's things in the EDC community and the knife community that matter, and then there's things that people just want to complain about that don't matter at all, and that is one of those things, in my opinion. The retention of the blade to stay closed in your pocket does not have to be such that it takes a lot of force to open it. It can be something like this, where you can point the knife blade, spine down, and shake it open, and it is not going to open in your pocket unless you are doing some insane stuff. And there again, if you are doing those types of things, there's a couple of options. Either one, you need to settle down. Two, you need to carry a different style of blade if you're going to be living that type of lifestyle where you're doing somersaults off the top of roofs and whatnot. I just, in my everyday life and in the people that I spend time with and hang out with, I've never heard of anyone having that issue where they have a knife open in their pocket. So I've heard a couple of people complain about that with the Benchmade 940, and I just don't feel like that's a problem for me. I love this knife. I think it's fantastic. Ergonomics are great. It's got jimping in the right places, even though I'm kind of on board with I don't see why jimping is a necessary thing. I mean, my grip is such that I'm not going to lose my knife with or without jimping. But the jimping that's on here is subtle. It is semi-recessed. If you look at it from the side, you cannot see the jimping until you turn it up a little bit. So it's one of those things where if you really need to bear down, you get that extra little grip. But if you're holding the knife lightly, you can't hardly feel it. The purple backspacer is cool. It's the perfect amount of color. I am a fan of colored backspacers and barrel spacers and things like that, like with the Technos. You got the blue on the Techno 1, got a little pop of green on the Techno 2, or the Techno rather. It's not the Techno 1. I got corrected on that recently. And then, of course, my homie, Mr. Scott Big Bore Williams, put some purple backspacers and lock pin and screws in my Yojimbo recently, and I love it. I love a little pop of color, and he did that to my knife as kind of a gift, because I was missing a body screw, and he said, you know what, I'm not gonna to review and borrow Bama's knife and send it back missing a screw, because he's such a wonderful guy. So he replaced them all, and I love the purple. And so I feel like the purple with this green is such a wonderful setup. I think it looks fantastic. That's a great color to go together. It's kind of like a, the Joker colors, the purple and the green. But this is my first experience with the 940 Osborne, and I absolutely love it. I love the swedge on there. I think it's a great looking blade shape. It's super thin. It feels good, and this knife is one of the most fidgety knives I've ever played with. When I first got it, I sent Steve a video that was me just literally over and over and over again doing this, and I was like, I can't stop. And of course it was in, there was some comedy involved in that, but it was true. I literally flipped that knife over and over and over again when I first got it, and was making Bama Knife Wife super irritated, because that's basically the way I operate with any new knife. I can't leave it alone. And I get a little carried away sometimes, and just do it over and over, repetition of just, flipping it, closing it, playing around with it. And she gets mad. She's like, could you please stop that? And so this is one of those knives where when you get it in hand, you can't not play with it. This is not a knife that you're going to get and it's going to go in your pocket and sit there all day. This is a knife that you're going to get and you're going to play with it. You're going to open it. You're going to find reasons to pull it out and mess around with it, because it's so much fun to play with. And I'm definitely not disappointed in it. This is my first experience with the 940, and it did not disappoint. Mr. Blade Banker told me that it would not, and he was right. Ben, you were correct. I love it. Most anyone that is a knife guy or gal and gets their hands on a 940 Osborne, I think you're going to be very, very pleased with it. It's not anything that is it's not anything that's relegated to just certain types of knife people. I feel like the fidget factor, the blade shape, the length, the thinness of the handle, the jimping in the right places, the fact that the axis lock is so fun. I feel like this is something that would fit a lot of different people, and I think this knife has been proven to be a staple in the knife community. Most every knife guy and knife gal has one, or has had one, or has some experience with one, and I don't hear a lot of bad things about it. So in my opinion, this is definitely a good knife. I'm down with recommending that knife to people, and I will do that. I have no previous experience with it other than this one, so I haven't been able to recommend it to people. But if I was going to talk to somebody and they were going to say, hey, what would be a good knife to start off with? What would be, if they're getting into Spyderco, I say, hey, grab you a PM2 or a Mannix 2. And if they're getting into Benchmade, I would say, grab you a Bug Out or grab you a 940. And so that's my thoughts on that. Real quick, something I'm trying to do a little more of, I see people do this and I do feel like it's helpful because it's helpful for me, is throwing down some size comparisons for the people that don't have experience with a certain knife, and showing it in hand, in different grips, and kind of show. And I do wear a large size glove. I've mentioned that before. I can't get my hand in a medium glove, and an extra large glove is a little bit too big. So large is perfect for me. And this is, the way the knife fits in my hand. It is definitely a 4-finger knife. You could get a 5th finger on there if you're some kind of carnival freak and you have more than 5. Here's some size comparisons. This is the Gavco. It's the Mass Drop Thresher, collaboration with Mike Gavick, whatever. That's a comparison there. By the way, thank you again, Spirited Whiskey, my buddy Ryan Leitner, for this knife. He gifted me this, and I can't get enough of this knife. I almost snuggle with it at night like a security blanket. I love this freaking thing. Kidding, of course, but you get what I'm saying. Here is the Swish Bowie, one of everyone's favorite Spyderco models for a size comparison. I already showed you, but I'll do it again. The Benchmade Bug Out, they are very, very close to the same size. The handle length on the 940 slightly longer, a hair thinner in some places. Very, very similar. So yeah, my phone kind of died there. But anyway, so size comparisons, Benchmade Bug Out. Then we will jump over to Yojimbo 2 for size comparison. Obviously, you can see the difference in the thickness there. Thickness of the handle, thickness of the blade. Very, very thin knife. And that is kind of something I like about it. I'm kind of starting to get more accustomed to and liking thinner knives better, just the ergonomics of them. Very similar to like an OTF knife, how thin they are. This is the Microtech Ultratech Spartan. Very similar in the thinness and the style, which really, really like that. Here's a comparison with the Spyderco Shaman. Obviously quite a bit different there with the thickness of the blade. Very similar in length. You got about an extra 1/4 inch there on the blade. but very similar in the overall length. Here is the Spyderco Domino. Definitely, again, big difference in the length. I mean the thinness of the knife compared to most knives. Don't get me wrong, man. I really like a thick knife in hand. It feels good for my hand size. But there's just something to be said about the thinness of this and just how you're able just to completely wrap it up. It feels very nice. But I'm going to cut this one here, ladies and gentlemen. I just kind of wanted to give you a overall kind of overview of how I feel about the Benchmade 940. I am pleased with it. And our last comparison, just because I looked over and saw it, very, very similar in shape and style, is the Purvis Xerx. Compared to the 940, very similar in blade shape, very similar in the thinness of the handle, and just kind of an overall long, slim knife. I've got a kind of an overview review type video, similar to the rest of my type of videos, coming up on this one as well. Love this knife. It's been very nice. Very, very nice knife. I am pleased with it. Some people have mixed feelings about it. I love it. So be looking out for a video to come out on that one, probably tomorrow. But overall, the verdict is in from me on the 940, and I think it is a winner. So that is it, guys and gals. I love you. I'm out.